Ethan, you're right. Just to pick up on your lead-in commentary there are a great many advantages for the engaging with the ecosystem, the medtech ecosystem within Ireland. I too would like to share a little bit of an oversight on how Ireland has developed into becoming the ecosystem and the position that it has taken. And then I'll speak a little bit about how we're presently trying to address one of the core challenges that can exist within medtech development, and not towards the enormous challenge of initial research and discovery, but in the translational aspect of it. This is an international issue and problem, typically referred to as a valley of death for positive ideas, and Ireland is now building a national system to specifically address that. So importantly, this system that has been built, which is the ARC Hub for HealthTech, is being developed as a national platform to address global medtech interests and global medtech needs. So if we step into the slide deck, I'll give a commentary on the Irish ecosystem. So as you've heard earlier on the call today, the Irish ecosystem is enormously impressive. It's been developing for 4 decades plus. It's really evolving towards a very vibrant, highly mature, globally connected ecosystem. It certainly has very strong multinational presence. And at its origin, it anchored around operational and multinational interests. But our ecosystem developed and matured and accelerated very quickly to give complementary aspects from operational excellence, and a number of the facilities in Ireland have reached the highest levels of international credibility and awards, Shingo Awards, across multiple of our facilities here in Ireland. But its full spectrum capabilities, competencies, we've very well established research base, we've very deep clinical capability, but importantly, the commentary is our ecosystem is broad spectrum in its skills and capabilities. So we have really expanded from an initial position of operational excellence, and from a variety of classes of technologies and solutions from their market potential into early stage startups, complementary service and skill sets, supply lines, and global distribution. So you'll have heard that Ireland is in the top 5 of global medtech hubs, which is an enormous achievement for an organization that is for a country that is of the size and scale that Ireland has. So the ecosystem itself, and I won't repeat what are the very impressive statistics for Ireland in terms of its productivity and output, around 80% of global stents, but I will narrow a little bit further into the economic value of this ecosystem from a manufacturer and export standpoint. So our ecosystem generates exports of 20 billion euro per annum. This is an incredible statistic and a major driver within our economy. But like all mature systems, the fundamental challenge here is towards how it evolves, how it matures. And this is an ecosystem that has been very positively maturing and evolving over the 4+ decades that it's existed here. And you'll have heard earlier the enormous impact that the universities have had and continue to have, and our institutes continue to have in this ecosystem. From and I'll echo the establishment of the undergraduate programs under Professor Pandit, and then beyond nationally into postgraduate programs. And I'm an individual that has been produced from this system as well, conducting my undergraduate programs in the University of Galway and postgraduate interests, and then into industry. And I too, as Ethan noted, completed a fellowship in the BioInnovate program, which is affiliated with the Stanford Design program to much acclaim and great output within our ecosystem. And because of the supports and structures that are broad spectrum within our ecosystem, I also had interest in establishing and founding startups aimed at addressing real-world chronic needs. But our ecosystem and our encouragements within Ireland lend itself to very favorable environments for the ideation side of it, the IP generation, our prototype development, and then the knitting together of our systems so that companies can have point origins here, but also can have global reach. So our ability to create clinical regulatory strategies, our ability to generate production facilities here, and ultimately bring best-in-class technologies into new markets. And our ability to fundraise has been accelerating over the past few decades as well. So these are areas of growing strength for the country, and these are areas that we're really looking to evolve our ecosystem towards. But we are really looking from a national initiative to accelerate and augment translational supports to our key institutes and our areas of high value research, so that the pathway from research to impact is not fragmented but accelerates through to the next wave of opportunity for where the Irish medtech system is moving towards. And that's where this specific area of translational research supports and infrastructural support is being addressed by the new ARC Hub for HealthTech. And that's what it's being designed to solve. So the ARC Hub for HealthTech is the newest addition to our ecosystem. And at its core, it is focusing on early health tech technologies and looking at how they can be systematically augmented and de-risked into investable grade assets along their translational pathway and journey, so that these very high value research opportunities are being supplemented by real world market driven knowledge and supports that the hub is putting around each of its projects to maximize their throughput potential and their real world impact. So this is not just a funding program, this is a structured system for translating research into investable med tech. And so we're really looking at converting high quality Irish health tech and research from a national perspective across all of our institutes into real world solutions that we can develop a system to produce at scale. So this is a national engine for accelerating health tech commercialization. The ARC, the ARC in the ARC Hub for Health Tech is accelerating research to commercialization. So Ireland has very strong foundations in the medtech ecosystem, high caliber research being conducted. The talent pool is very strong. We've exceptional R&D capabilities. As we note, there's 4 decades of medtech presence and establishment in Ireland. We've mentioned 14 out of the top 15 global multinationals have a presence here. I believe 80 to 90% of them have R&D capability. There's 50,000 people employed in the medtech ecosystem in Ireland, and 80% of that is with SMEs or indigenous companies, with an enormous flavor towards exceptional R&D and strong clinical and regulatory. And obviously with this type of system, we've very strong global industry links. So where the ARC Hub is acting here is really looking at where the next frontier can be created and how the ARC Hub can be an integration layer that's connecting very early healthcare solutions into a functioning pathway for venture grade assets to create the next wave of investable healthcare solutions. In practice, this creates a gateway, not just to innovation, but towards very robust evidence generation into integrated product development clinical evaluation, and go-to-market strategies. So the ARC Hub is attempting to maximize the benefits and maximize the utility of our competency strengths nationally, the experience of our ecosystem, and injecting that market grade need and desire at the earliest stage of health tech, new wave technologies, to inform them and to maximize their throughput towards addressing real-world chronic disease states. So the ARC Hub at its core is focused on the next wave of health tech solutions, and so these are predominantly based in the Irish research institutes. These are at a project level stage, but those projects that enter into the ARC Hub are all being considered as very high caliber, investable grade potential. So each of the initiatives that are being undertaken within the ARC Hub for Health Tech are of a startup and investable grade potential. But in addition to the product and project side of the initiative, the ARC Hub is equally focused on creating an exceptional group of entrepreneurial talent and early stage entrepreneurial competency. We're seeing that ecosystems as they mature, the ability for talent and skills and the talent pool to be nurtured and to recycle is a major advantage for the Irish ecosystem moving into the future. So we're addressing what we feel is a national program initiative rather than looking at potential fragmented supports to provide end-to-end capability for early innovations right through to investable grade opportunities with a heavy focus on market readiness and market realization. A major initiative around the ARC Hub is evidence-based entrepreneurialism, and this is one of the key advantages because of our tight-knit networked approach within the Irish system, but also our international reach, our ability to be able to identify and focus the highest grade of evidence generation will set a lot of our next wave initiatives, providing them an international advantage. So this is a Research Ireland based national platform. We're fortunate in it's based in Galway, but it has a national reach. I'm mentioning Galway as you've heard earlier. It's a particular centre of strength for medtech. People often refer it as our version of Silicon Valley for medtech in a European context and on the western coast of Ireland. But really the positioning of the ARC Hub for Health Tech is a central aspect within a very diverse connected portfolio and suites of very high international competencies. So you'll have heard earlier from Quorum, and I'm bringing in the new Montclair and branding initiative under RIN Medical Devices as a internationally respected and well-proven Research Ireland Centre for MedTech. But there's a variety of other aspects that we're looking to knit together to create that continuum for evidence generation to help accelerate and burst accelerate the next wave of health tech initiatives. And these can be sourced from the DigiBio areas or BioInnovate, which we've mentioned before, but there's supplemental institutes that are focused in on new waves of exploration, ideation, prototype development, and institutes for clinical trial. So we're really looking at how we can, and this may be the very important aspect, how we can evolve the ecosystem in medtech, because rarely the bottlenecks are scientific. Really, it's a continuum of translational aspects. So from a ecosystem perspective, we're positioning the ARC Hub to facilitate a smoothing function, an accelerating function across some of the extraordinarily and internationally renowned practices and groups that currently exist. I would like to note that the ARC Hub for Health Tech is not a purely standalone ARC Hub. This is, as I mentioned, a Research Ireland national platform, but it's one of 3 initiatives. So there are 3 ARC Hubs across Ireland. Each of them are addressing a focal domain. We're representing national health tech interests in Galway, and there are 2 partner hubs in Dublin, focally set around an ARC Hub for ICT and an ARC Hub for therapeutics. Together, we are funded to deploy approximately €100 million to accelerate research towards commercialization in each of these targeted specific domains. So at the center of what it is we are doing, we call the ARC Hub engine. We're a systematic infrastructure rather than a funding initiative to look at how we can systematically move technologies through defined pathways, from research towards market and clinical validation, regulatory strategy, go-to-market strategies, and ultimately coalesce the intersection of all of those strategies into internationally competitive investment-ready opportunities. But the key here is that it is not a sequence of supports. It's an integrated system, which means we're bringing all of these in together at the earliest stage so that the opportunities can be molded and shaped towards maximal effect. And that's significant both in terms of reducing both time and risk through development. So to bring some of this into more concrete understandings, and we do have to appreciate that the ARC Hub is at its earliest stage. But if you consider where in a typical system, you'd have early product development and aspects of operational and technical validation and regulatory planning, that sequential activity can typically take several years, and that the insights through each of those functional aspects can reveal different risks at different points through the cadence of the system. Within the ARC Hub, these elements are aligned from the outset. So the intention of our modus operandi here is that technology is integrated at the start within clinical environments for evaluation, with expertise, with networked capabilities, bringing some of the international renowned regulatory specialists to define pathways, to knit together both the technical nuance with the clinical environment need and the regulatory claims to provide a suite of opportunities for all of our projects. So we're not just accelerating development, we're changing a format in how product development in medtech actually happens at its earliest stage. And this is really enabled as this is a national infrastructure that can lean into the capabilities that Ireland's medtech system affords here, which is through our clinical networks, our research centres, our industry partnerships, and our commercial expertise. So for international interests and international partners, the key here is really around value. It's access not just for innovation, but it's the focused de-risking pathway to not just European markets, but international markets, that the outputs of a translational system like the ARC Hub for HealthTech is going to generate. And that's where we see the key difference between traditional funding mechanisms and projects and where we're looking at building a system for systematic de-risking. So our objectives, which I've touched on through the discussion earlier, but it's really anchored around 3 particular core interests here. So this is accelerating translational interests. It's about driving regional development to do that for cutting edge research. It's about building entrepreneurial capability. We're focused heavily on people, on talent, on capability. Companies don't innovate. Companies don't create. Companies don't ideate. It's the people that do. And so we're putting a huge emphasis on the entrepreneurial scientist, and the entrepreneurial engineer, and the entrepreneurial clinician. And ultimately, this is to deliver commercially viable outcomes, addressing some of the largest opportunities, but also some of the most critical opportunities in chronic disease state management internationally. So our mission at its core is quite simple. It is to systematically convert very strong health tech technologies into real-world products and services at scale. And we're very much focused on the entrepreneurial talent development side of this to nurture our ecosystem at a much greater level so that the talent pool can recycle within our ecosystem, so that the breadth of undertaking and capability is not just nationally focused, but internationally renowned. And it's building on areas of increasing strength that our ecosystem has been nurturing and producing over the past 4 decades. I will note as well how connected our national network is, and an advantage for our ARC Hub is how well networked our clinical and research systems are. So the ARC Hub was established across a 3-partner system initiative, the University of Galway, the RCSI in Dublin, and ATU. And in addition to those discrete areas of renowned research and acclaim, we've also access to the region's hospitals for evaluation, validation environment, and access to discrete insights for what are representative of real-world data and real-world bottlenecks. And it's a rapidly developing network of engagement to provide at source real-world identity, access to the environments to tailor the solutions to help accelerate both regulatory clinical progress. And this is a means of national calibration that is likely to be highly practical for very early stage product development. So the ARC Hub for Health Tech has broad interests across health tech needs, and I mentioned focus here is on some of the most critical international needs around chronic disease state management, but specifically we have thematic areas of interest. We focus on what are globally relevant domains, including AI, connected devices, novel sensors, smart implantables, and medical robotics. We're facing into what is likely some of the greatest challenges and certainly the fastest and greatest rates of change within our health systems. And these thematic areas of interest are very much aligned to those critical areas for future strength, not just within our ecosystem, but within the global reach and appeal for where medtech solutioning is being positioned towards. And I think everybody is becoming more and more familiar with aspects of this. And so from connected health interests, we can all see that sensors being integrated with higher powered deduction and even advanced AI insights can facilitate the moving from monitoring towards predictive insights and intervention. And we're very much steering the ARC Hub for Health Tech towards that future space. So all of the initiatives that are being systematically supported within the ARC Hub for Health Tech are aligned with these thematic areas. And those areas aren't just discrete points of future interest. These areas are really aspects for critical convergence. And increasingly the opportunity isn't just in individual technologies, but it's at the intersection point between these areas of thematic interest and these points of convergence. So where data, device, AI is combining is likely to create very advantageous environments for novel solutioning and addressing complex orders of chronic disease states to create more powerful clinical solutions. So you can see the positioning of this in implantable technologies where integration points with data enables higher responsiveness and adaptability in therapies, towards where in some aspects you're leading towards even personalization. So at the ARC Hub, we're steering towards where we feel the translational aspects will have greatest appeal and landing, not just where the medtech needs are today, but creating that higher order application and outcomes for where the ecosystem is actually moving towards. This is why our focus is on systematic approaches to create platform level innovations and not just simply standalone products. And to achieve this, the ARC Hub is building a foundation towards international expert support, appeal, and credibility. And so each of those thematic areas that we are focused on has a international, well-respected expert as a thematic lead across each of our areas. This is a structural element of focus for the ARC Hub, where we're looking at how to inject market-grade dynamics into each of these projects and how to expose the solutioning to our networked appeal at not just national but international level of innovation and access to experts in the clinical domain, market domain, and from a regulatory legal standpoint. So this is a very focused area nationally that we are looking to address, and we're very excited by the caliber of the thematic supports and leads that we have, as well as the structural elements of our advisory committee that are working to support the ARC Hub initiatives. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Ethan. So the hub itself is young. It is new in the ecosystem, but it is not built towards purely a funding mechanism. It is framed very much towards measurable outputs around startup, intellectual property, licensing, and talent development, as I've noted on the entrepreneurial interest before. So the alignment towards the impact of the ARC Hub is not one of activity, but one of throughput, one of credibility, one of adding to the bolstering and robustness of our medtech ecosystem, but also pointing these initiatives towards clinical market appeal, which is why a very strong focus of our initiatives are to create investable grade opportunities so that the capital can flow into these meaningful, impactful startups, so that they can mature along the development cascade. And this is perhaps one of the areas from an international partnership interest and participation that it's worth echoing, that our targets here are very much aligned towards startups, fundraising, licensing, patents, and spin-outs. Really, in a simple way, it's designing an outcomes-driven system. So the ARC Hub is not a hypothesis; it is live. We are relatively new within our first year, but we've completed call 1 with 23 translational projects already active across these thematic areas, with a relatively balanced and weighted distribution across each of those thematic areas. So we are new, but our pipeline is already live. This is not a future ambition, and we're looking to move both in volume and in speed. So if you move to the next slide, we've already moved from our call 1, which are our active initiatives across those theme areas, into a call 2, which is what we're currently undertaking right now. Just on the next slide, please, Ethan. Which again was a national wide open call to our research institutes, our national research institutes, to try and introduce the ARC Hub as a new system and a new way of translating research towards commercialization. If you can advance the slide there, please. And it got great reception across all of our national institutes, where we are looking to approximately deploy 10 million, just one further back, 10 million euro into the next wave of funding early stage health technologies. No, you're okay. You can stay here. I'll catch up. Really, we were looking at addressing and bolstering the thematic areas and expanding the flavor into some adjacencies around those thematic areas. That call received a very high volume of an extraordinarily high grade of application submissions from across Ireland and its research initiatives. So we're very excited about closing out that funnel intake process in the next couple of weeks to add what we'd expect is another cohort of funded initiatives to accelerate their development. The ARC Hub has established a leadership and directorship initiative across the Irish ecosystem, and very much focused and tailored towards bringing in some of our greatest advocates and voices and experts from technical, clinical, commercial, and impact. And so our positioning here is to give weight and perspective to our national voices of particular strength. So I would say, if you move to the next slide, please, Ethan, that a critical aspect towards this is in collaboration. An ecosystem like the medtech ecosystem in Ireland has been very strong, and it has very strong roots, but it is extraordinarily networked internationally. And what we're looking to do here is accelerate that international interest and participation and partnership. And there's a variety of different ways that the ARC Hub projects, the outputs out of our institutes could be extraordinarily attractive for a both path flow from Taiwanese innovation interests back into European markets, and very much looking towards how these multiple pathways for collaboration in potentially joint R&D as a developmental aspect towards market exploration and development, and even towards co-development, operationalizing and licensing. So each of those aspects map directly onto the ARC Hub engine, and we're looking to explore how international partnerships could potentially engage at different stages depending on their capability and strategy. So in very practical terms, the ARC Hub is providing a structured route from very early innovation towards European market and international market readiness, and we'd love to explore some of these opportunities together. So I'd like to thank you very much for the time to present and position where the ARC Hub sits as a new arrival within the Irish ecosystem, and where we feel the advantages of our Irish ecosystem are maturing and developing into the future. So if you feel there's a useful discussion, post-date this, I think details will be shared, and I'd very welcome an opportunity to engage with your network. Thank you very much.